Shadow Communications Minister Jason Clare joins me now. Jason, thanks so much for joining me.
Morning,
I want to
Laura.
ask you first about these reports about cuts to the SBS and ABC, perhaps in the order of around $300 to $500 million between them. Is that what you were expecting, and how damaging will that be to these broadcasters, do you think?
Well, there's no other way to say it. Tony Abbott's a liar. The night before the election, he promised no cuts to the ABC and no cuts to SBS. So that's what we were expecting. We were expecting him to keep his promise. But instead now it looks like something in the order of $500 million worth of cuts. Malcolm Turnbull has also said this would all be back office cuts, but now we're hearing that this will lead to hundreds of sackings and lots of shows being cut as well. So this is an issue of trust. The Prime Minister promised he wouldn't do it, and just like he's done on health, on education, on petrol taxes and pensions, and now potentially the GST, he's lied to the Australian people.
There's broken promises aside, the SBS and ABC do have room to tighten their belts a little. Would you at least accept that?
All organisations do. Public or private, any organisation can be more efficient. The job is to find those efficiencies and reinvest them in new shows, new products for the Australian people. That's what we did when we were in government, use that money to create things like ABC3 and iView. The Prime Minister here said there'd be no cuts. What I'm saying is find efficiencies in the ABC and SBS and use that to invest in more shows for the Australian people.
But what do you think viewers will see a difference in the ABC or SBS? Anything, or will this be mainly backroom efficiencies?
Well, this is the point. The government said this is all back of house. What I'm hearing is that's not the case at all. And when these cuts are formally announced, we'll find out that hundreds of people are going to get the sack, and lots of shows that lots of people watch and enjoy and rely upon every day for useful information are going to get the cut. And when they get the cut, I think a lot of people are going to be pretty angry with this government.
The Chinese FTA, the Free Trade Agreement, has been in the works for some time, more than a decade. Simon Crean did take the lead on negotiation for this for Labor in the previous government. Why wasn't Labor able to sign this deal?
Well, think about this, Laura. Over the last few weeks, we've been reflecting on the legacy of Gough Whitlam, the man who opened up Australia's relationship with China. Back then, Australia's two-way trade with China was less than $100 million. Now it's more than $100 billion every year, and set to get even bigger. That's why this agreement is so important. They take time, like all free trade agreements, almost all of them. They're the work of Labor and Liberal governments over time working to finalise them. When this is finalised, invariably it's going to be good for Australia as well.
Remote. We'll
need to see the detail to confirm.
And Jason, I want to ask you a final question about the renewable energy target. Labor appears to have dealt themselves out of relevance in negotiations here, no longer negotiating with the government on this after 3 weeks. Now, why has that decision been made? And isn't this the worst case scenario, resulting in uncertainty for this industry going forward?
Well, worst case scenario is that the government implements its proposal. If the government makes the changes to the renewable energy target that it wants to, it'll kill the industry dead. It'll mean jobs will go offshore. We've said that we're willing to compromise here, and we've sat down with the government, but what's been obvious from those discussions is the government is not willing to compromise. We're not willing to sign up to a deal which is going to kill off renewable energy in Australia. It's not good for Australia, and we've said that to the government. They need to be willing to compromise.
Jason Clare, thanks so much for joining us on AM Agenda.
Thanks, Laura.